Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Sheila Vand is an actor. She sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
You land the role, you get the script. What's the first thing you do?
I usually read it a few times over to get like a general sense of the overall structure or shape of what I want the performance to be. My favorite performances are like, they go from one place to another, or they go up and down, and so I try to make sure that like I'm just at least not making the same choice. You know, that my choices are varied and layered, and then so it's a few different layers. And I do want to say that like I understand why a lot of people don't get acting or know what the process is, because it also is slightly abstract, and I'm kind of like in a constant state of trying to evolve my process and get better at it and more efficient, and then like suddenly being like wanting to throw it all out the window and again it's like different things require different processes, and I also don't want to dissect it too much because I feel like demystifying it, not that I need it to stay like, it's just a little bit psychic for me, the process. So there's a few different layers, and I don't know if this is going to be too all over the place.
No, I'm fascinated by that part. Like, so obviously if it's working for you, you almost don't want to mess with it too much. Like if it's on another level, if you're pulling something from another level, basically what you're saying, you don't want to try and dissect that too much because you'll feel like you're gonna lose it. Right? Or you lose.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so
it'll unravel as you're sort of pulling it apart.
Right. So, but you still have that instinct to try and harness it.
So what I'll say is it's some characters you'll get, and it's like the words were meant to come out of your mouth, and you don't even like. I hate auditioning more than anything, and I'm really not very good at it. But there are some auditions where I'm like, I know I'm gonna get this one, because something about it speaks to my spirit in a way where it's just comes naturally. And those are the characters I try not to mess with too much, because I'm like, okay, there is like some cylinder firing in me that is just meant for this, and that's where it feels almost psychic and cosmic, and it's like, okay, I don't need to do too much here. And then there's some where I'm like, oh, this is a bit of a stretch for me. Or, you know, maybe it's like a genre movie where I'm playing into science fiction, or it's action. If I feel like I have to put something on a bit more, then that requires a bit more shaping and crafting. And I'd say the different sort of like realms in which my brain floats as I'm trying to put together a performance is, it's not a linear process. So there's, you know, I said that thing, I read the script a few times, whatever. Yeah, obviously, like, you know, you got to memorize your lines. Yeah. Sometimes in the process of memorizing your lines, you start to discover your choices. But so there's like one realm of the physical, external stuff of just what does this person look like? Yeah. How do they walk and talk? Is it the way I walk and talk? Is it a little bit different? Do they have any tics? That stuff. Then there's like, I guess the way I would describe it is like an emotional collage. So I'm less of one of those actors who's like, I have to have actions and motivation and like the stuff you learn in theater school. Like, I don't do that shit. I think a lot about who the person is, and then I kind of like go into myself to like different things that have emotionally impacted me throughout my life, which are usually just like glimpses and vignettes and memories and moments and feelings. And then it's about like, which one of these things do I need to like bring it? So it's like an all cylinders firing thing. It takes a lot of focus for me. Like, it's honestly, I think partially it's because I'm like not that good at acting. Like, you know, like for some people it's like, oh, it's so effortless, it's so natural. I'm like, nah, I gotta be like,
it's like an
focused.
Exorcism. You gotta pull it out.
It is. It's something weird.
Talk a little bit about your role in The Girl That Walks Home Alone at Night. You were saying that you were in like a dark place, ready to do these scenes. Then by the time you ended up filming, you were in a brighter kind of place, you know? But I want to know, how did you kind of try to get back there in order to work?
Right. I mean, this is where, like, you know, this is why you prepare and why you, where craft and sort of technique start to really help out is when it isn't just like the perfect day to cry an ocean of tears, or the perfect day to be the funniest version of yourself, you know, because you shoot when you shoot. You don't get to reschedule a shoot or a theater performance because that day you're not in the right mood, you know? So you do rely on the choices you've made, listening to your scene partner, just coming back to the text the most. That's the most helpful thing, is the words and being in that moment, but then also what I was describing before, which is the emotional reserves you have, which is maybe why some actors are kind of messed up people. Not messed up people, but sometimes emotionally jumbled a little bit, because you're doing something that is not necessarily natural. It's like, for me at least, I have to actually feel things. Like, you know, whatever, I guess it's called method acting. But I was thinking of it on the train over here, which is that it's like, I'm a terrible liar. I'm like one of those actors who's a really bad liar. And I think the reason why I like method or whatever, you know, actually feeling the thing I'm supposed to feel, is that I didn't get into this to get into the art of deceit. I think more the reason why I became an actor is that I'm a person who has a lot of excess of emotion and intense energy and life force. And so I had to find something else to put that in. And so what I've discovered, this is a little bit roundabout, but I'm gonna get to what you're saying, because I also have a good kind of example, I think, that could answer it. But I need acting as an outlet for all these extra feelings that I was born with. And for a while in my 20s, when I was just doing the hustle of trying to build a career, there was a lot of just wanting to be right for every part. And I was living in Los Angeles, and all of a sudden I was getting really good at the technical stuff, like learning the lines and making really interesting choices, and I became very clever. And like, it was like, oh, I can be really intelligent, make smart choices, but you live in LA long enough, you can become like a cog in this sort of like Hollywood machine, and then all of a sudden you don't have any sort of soul, or you're not drawing from your life experiences anymore. You're just doing this thing. Look, you can slot me into any audition. I can play that person and that person. So when I think acting is the most like noble, and part of why I continue to do it even when I want to quit so many times, is that I think when it's at its best, it's operating in tandem with your spiritual journey. I know that sounds a little bit new agey.
Not to me.
But like, I just mean that like, you can be a really brilliant actor if it's just technical, but like, if you're not in touch with yourself as a person, you are going to be limited. You know, like for me, like, I don't think I'm a great technician. I don't think I'm like a natural when it comes to acting, but I'm like fierce when it comes to trying to bring my soul into things. Like the things that have influenced my acting are so much more random than you would think. Like something I see on the street, a memory, a smell, it's so much more like sensual. Again, I feel like so pretentious talking about it like this, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know, if it was gardening, like I wouldn't have done it. I want it to be complicated. Like I want it to be a challenge. I mean, I don't want it to be challenging. I really crave the day where like all this stuff gels together, but like I said, that's why I'm evolving it.
Yeah.
But okay, so I just did a movie called We the Animals.
Yeah. It
premiered at Sundance. It's coming out in the theaters this fall. And for me, it was a really big opportunity. It was a larger part than I usually get to play, and it required more of me as an actor, and was an emotionally intense character. And I decided, like, I pretty much as soon as I got, like, soon before filming, like pretty much as soon as I got the part, to start therapy, which I had never done because I come from a Middle Eastern background, and therapy is like a very like white thing. And I was one of those people who was worried that I had to be tortured as an actor and I had to stay broken, and what would happen if I like got fixed? Like what would I draw from all this stuff? And it's just such a misconception that you will become numb by healing your wounds. And so actually what happened is, the reason that I went to therapy is, even though I suffer from depression sometimes, but I was actually in a good place that time. It was more that I was like, I need to go dig up some stuff for this part. So I decided to kind of like use the therapy as like part of the process. And so that was now like almost 2 years ago, and now I'm like, it's become an integral part. And like, this is again what I mean by like your spiritual journey and your journey as an actor. It's like, the more that that stuff I've repressed, and I used to think, oh, is this unhealthy? Normal people try to forget these bad things, but actually I've like blossomed so much from confronting some of this painful stuff. And like that's this shit at its best, you know. This is the stuff like where you're like, this is like, I'm healing as a person. Holy shit, I have that thing now I can bring into this performance that this performance needed. Like, I don't know. And then there are times where I'm like, you're overthinking all of it, Sheila, and you're gonna be miserable for the rest of your life because you're taking it way too seriously.
You take this seriously. Like you take acting seriously. I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I do. Like just possibly take it too seriously.
Yeah. I mean, maybe other people don't take it seriously enough.
I have so many like feelings and thoughts about this actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if I take it too seriously or whether other people don't or whatever. I'm also constantly kind of evolving my process and trying to figure it out, and it does feel like it's different project by project and director to director, but I do feel like there has been such a wave of work, and again, particularly in the context of like first-time filmmakers and sort of emerging indie filmmakers, which are the majority of the ones I work with, where like the film will turn out really beautiful, really nice to look at. There's some plot there, but then it's so often that character development is the weakest link of a film. And you know, not to sound super pretentious and vain and put the spotlight on just the acting, but that's what this podcast is about. So it always kind of blows me away how much thought and preparation goes in to every element besides the acting. Like there's an entire process for pre-production. There are weeks and weeks, if not months and months, preparing for you don't wing it in any other department. You have meetings with department heads, but it's very rare you even have a rehearsal as an actor. You might kind of like talk to the director once about the character, and again, this depends on the filmmaker. There are some people who are more process oriented, but for the most part, it seems like it's not a priority. And I'm like, but the performance is the living, breathing thing in front of the camera. It's like you spent 5 years writing this thing, trying to get this thing made, and then in the 11th hour you're like, oh, but fuck the thing that's actually in front of me telling my story. And if you can't tell already, I built up like a fair amount of resentment towards this neglect. So it's like, it's not like, yeah, we need to take this more seriously and like, oh my God, like it's just a lot of things fall flat, and I feel like they don't need to, and there are missed opportunities because actors want to be turning out great work. They want to be vulnerable. They want to open themselves up to these stories and these characters. And what do you do when the person who's like the captain of your ship is afraid of you, you know, or like afraid to tell you what to do, or I think maybe the reason also that I take it seriously is that like I'm less interested in being an actor than I am in being an artist. And so that's like another relationship that people don't talk about very often, is the relationship to those two things. And you're almost just like, or at least in my experience, I feel like it's pretentious to talk about acting as art, or it's vain, or that like if I have needs to sort of protect my performance, I'm being demanding, no matter what that need is. And perhaps that's just me, something I need to get over, or maybe because I'm a woman and everything is sort of crafted to make me feel like I'm imposing. But you know, like I said, like every other department has a head, you know, like the cinematography, the lighting, the hair, the makeup, and they go to the director and they say, okay, you need these special effects, I'm gonna need X, Y, and Z for that. Or, oh, you want it to look like that, I'm gonna need this many lights, and I'm gonna need this much time. But when do they come to the actor and say, so you're gonna have to act like you just lost your baby and you're about to murder somebody and your whole life is falling apart? Is there anything you might need to achieve that really insane thing that I'm asking you to achieve? Like, no one does that. And then for me, I feel afraid often to say, can I have like 30 seconds of quiet before I have to cry my eyes out? Like, you know, so some of that is like, and then you learn as with experience that like a lot of the greats do ask for what they need. And you know, fuck a director that makes you feel bad about it, because hello, like, don't you want your movie to be good? Because it doesn't matter how pretty your movie is.
That's right.
It just doesn't, even if the words are brilliant and there's no life in it.
Mm-hmm. Also, just on this point, it's the cheapest thing.
It requires no money at
no
all.
money. It's the most
Yeah.
important and the cheapest.
Yeah.
And it's neglected. I think the way you put it is important, because you just mentioned actors that maybe great actors that did this, but then they might maybe go down in history as the demanding divas, you know, shamefully that we think of them like that.
A diva also, like, you know, there's not even really a proper equivalent for that word for men,
Absolutely.
right? And so
Absolutely.
that's another frustrating thing, because I think when men ask for what they need, it is often thought of as, anyways, that's a separate conversation, but
No,
it's just thought of as respect, like, oh, that he has such integrity, he really cares about the work, and then a woman asks for something.
Right.
And then there's also a lot of like ways in which I think we could utilize actors as real resources that producers and filmmakers seem to be afraid of, that I find really fascinating. Like, this person who you've hired to bring this character to life is like, all I'm thinking about is my own character. And we do get, is myopic the right word? Like, we do get in a sort of tunnel vision about it, and I understand that that can probably be frustrating for filmmakers who are like, I'm thinking about 7 million different things. But it's like, why not take advantage of the fact that I'm only thinking about this person? Like, I have gone through and thought about how, like, you know, for often with like costumes or hair and makeup, which are direct extensions of character, which are like literally existing on my person. Like, when I look down, when I pass a mirror, like, I want to feel in character. And, you know, I mean, some people are more collaborative than others, and like some situations I feel more safe and comfortable to. And sometimes I don't have as strong of an opinion on some of those things.
Are you going to start to be more selective now in terms of directors?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and that's the deal. Is like, it's just, I think, you know, I'm probably speaking this way because I'm sort of at a particular turning point right now, and I'm now finally at a place and an age where, you know, financially and career-wise, I can do that. But for so long, I couldn't, and it just wasn't really an option to say no to work. And I had that sort of like immigrant worker mentality of like, you take the job and you're grateful for it. And maybe that's where some of this, you know, like but and then part of that too is writing my own stuff. That's like a big thing that I want to do also. Like, I want to support first-time filmmakers and emerging talents forever, because I do think that there's something about being early in your career and the risks you take, and things change once you blow up. And I'm interested in storytellers who are in that raw, early phase. But I guess it's that I'm sort of just curious about what it would be like to craft a performance of my own, because the other thing is you do relinquish a lot of control as an actor. So, you know, you come in with your choices, you do the best you can, but at the end of the day, the way it all gets spliced and cut together is a massive part of the final product. And so there's that too, where I mean, the way I work generally is I like to give directors lots of options. So I try to switch it up every take so that when they're in the editing room, they can play and they have some sort of different colors to craft it with. But sometimes that backfires. And so sometimes you're like, okay, I'm giving this person lots of choices, and then sometimes you're like, I don't know if I trust this person. I just want to give them the choice I think is. But in a best case scenario, it's this collaborative, mutual trust thing.
And talk about that. Talk about what you need ideally from a director.
Yeah, that's a really good question. But even here in this like safe space, I'm like scared to ask for it. I'm like, what are they going to think? Is it like? I mean, generally, again, it totally depends. Like sometimes, definitely if I'm like in a supporting role where you just like kind of come in and out, you can have a good time, make big choices, but this whole thing isn't relying on you. There's like almost no needs because I know it's not like necessarily about me and I'm here to support others. But like if you're like carrying the weight of something and it requires a lot emotionally from you, I think just what I would want from a filmmaker is like definitely at least an acknowledgement of sort of like what it is that's being asked of me and what I'm gonna have to do. But just like a certain sort of serenity on set, because there's just hundreds of people swirling all around you. And, you know, look, I am a professional at this point. Like, I can tune all of that out. I'm built to do that. We're built as actors to navigate through all those different energies on set and all those different people and everyone trying to make small talk with you and joke about their weekend and you're about to cry and like, you know, like you learn to sort of desensitize. But what's tricky is at the same time that you have to pretend like none of these people really exist, you also have to keep your channels like open to the character and to spontaneity. I mean, God forbid something spontaneous happens in front of the camera. That almost never happens. Things move too fast. It's so high pressure. There's rarely a moment where it's like, okay, let's bring the energy down because we're about to call action. It's just, sometimes it just feels like the ball is rolling. By the time you're done shooting something, you're like, okay, I hope I got it all out there. I hope they got what they needed, but it's just moving, you know, but they'll take all the time in the world to reset a light. Or, you know, if something needs to be, so I don't know, I don't want to tell other people how to do it, like, or how I want them to do it. It's more like I'm just like, Sheila, you need to just be brave and make your own thing. And so I don't want to fall into a place where I'm like, this is how I would, it's like.
No, but so far, what you said you need is probably the least amount that anyone could need. It's just someone saying, I think I know what you're trying to do here. This is probably hard. So
yeah, like maybe like so, just on this one day, like we can let the crew know like today's really dark and intense, like, and it's again, it's like, it's not fucking about like, I don't want anyone to speak to me on set, like bullshit. I'm always like the one like partying with the crew more than anyone else. And like, it's not about that. It's about this one day. Like tomorrow, as soon as we wrap, like I'll go get beers with you. But today, like be conscious that like, I don't, especially because also I'm a friendly person. So I feel bad. I don't want to be like cold to someone. Again, you become a more important big deal actor. People don't really do that. But again, it's not that I'm saying like, don't approach us, but it's like, look at what is required of me today in this scene. Look at what I mean, a lot of the times, people aren't even really aware of like what scene's being shot that day as far as like the plot of the thing goes or.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. There is only one person whose job it is to protect you. Like the gaffer dude doesn't have to know what you need. The director though has to know that he has to tell the gaffer dude, don't talk to her during this 3 hours. You know, I mean, really, I mean, it's protection.
I hope that's not too much to ask, but it's like literally, like I will shoot the shit with you all day long. As soon as I'm done pretending like my child just died, like then I will, or whatever, you know, whatever it is.
I imagine then that actors who become directors are probably the best directors for actors, or at least know what an actor needs, and can at least create the environment that's comfortable for the actor.
I worked with, so I've had a couple different sort of like versions of that. I was in ARGO, which Ben Affleck directed.
Right.
And that, I would say, it was absolutely translated, his knowledge of acting to his approach as a director. Like, it's a very kind of, he casts particularly down-to-earth people, so the vibe is very kind of friendly and open, and I just remember everyone being really welcoming, and there were no egos, no, like, you know, for such a heavy-hitting cast, like, you know, it could have been otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But did you feel that coming from the head, like from him? Like, was that an environment he was creating?
I think so, yeah. I think he has a sort of like calmness as a director, at least from my recollection of working with him in the scenes we had together, like that made it feel, I mean, like, again, like I was a small part in that, so maybe if I was the lead, it would feel different. But I do remember that I felt comfortable to play and make choices. And I even remember him saying to us that, like, I don't think he's very strict on the text as far as like it has to be verbatim. Like, it's much more important to him that things feel organic and natural. And then I also worked with Ingrid Youngerman, who's a really amazing New York-based filmmaker who like writes and directs and acts in a lot of her work. So she's a different kind of creator. So I think more of her background is in writing and directing, but she's like putting herself in just as vulnerable of a situation as you. And so I found her to be incredibly collaborative and open-minded and wanted to know my ideas and wasn't afraid of me having a good idea. But again, it's like, it's just case by case. I do think it helps when it's an actor turned director. And then I've worked with directors who haven't acted, but they're really meticulous about backstory and stuff like that. Like Ana Lily Amirpour, who did A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night with me, she's incredibly detail-oriented about backstory. And so like this is the music this character listens to. This is like, just every single question I had was answered, and she was excited by that. Like, she likes questions. There's a lot of directors that are a little bit sort of like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And at first you're like, cool, I can like make my own choices. And then you're like, does this, like, what do I think? Like, do you have any thoughts? Like, you know, like, sometimes I get so scared, like if someone's a little bit more tyrannical or just like, a little bit more dictator type filmmaker, like I get scared to improvise. And I've noticed like, then the one time I do, like that'll make it into the movie. And I'm like, damn, I wish I had felt more free. But again, it's like, you know, partially it's my job. I should just not give a shit and feel free. But, you know, I'm working on the confidence game. But partially it's like, it's your job. You should make me feel free. You should make me feel like I can play.
Yes.
Because that's what this all is.
Yes. Yes.
The other thing too is it's like I've always put a lot of like, I've always thought the answer was in auteurs, and I was like, those are the kinds of people I want to work with because they're like these visionaries. But I have sometimes found that maybe artists like don't really want to work with other artists that much. Like sometimes I think they don't want me to have all those ideas. They just kind of want me to do the thing they want me to do, which is fine if they're brilliant. You know, like I've done that and been like, wow, it really turned out good. Cool, you can make me do whatever you want, you know? But then sometimes they do that and you're like, but you didn't, you know, so. You
didn't come up with your end of the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes my artistry gets to come out more actually when the director isn't as much of an artist in a way. It's like it's every single situation is different. Also, like part of it for me too is that I'm trying to figure out what kind of actor I really want to be, because I'm always talking about wanting to like let more of myself explode in my life too. Like I'm always sort of praising the acting of the 70s and 80s and sort of being like, oh, I just want to like let it out. Like I get so tired of the like whispery, naturalistic, like that type of acting. I'm talking shit about it all the time, even though I do it. Because then you get in front of a camera and you're like, shit, I can't be that big. Like I have to bring it down and bring it in. And then I just get to a point where I'm sort of like, is this why I became an actor? To like, I'm so much more animated as a person than I get to be often as an actor. But then I look at someone like Laurie Metcalf, who's one of my favorite actors of all time, or Frances McDormand, and like they're really explosive in their acting. Like Laurie Metcalf acts with her entire body. Like I feel like every single part of her is telling the story. Mm-hmm. And it's so alive and amazing. But so I just like eventually I would love to like, I'm just pushing myself. I want to get there, but I'm like, but I don't know. It probably is too much. Like when I do it, I get that the directors kind of want me to like bring it in, bring it down. But I think I get frustrated because it's like in my life, it's the same thing. In my life, I've had to tame myself so much. As a woman of color, an actress, so much bullshit. And so it's like multiple things right now where I'm like, I just wanna like, who gives a shit? I wanna be too much for you. I don't wanna be a little anymore.
Just briefly describe what Sneaky Nietzsche was and what it did for you as a performer. Like, was that the height of it for you and you want to get back to something like that?
Yeah, that's like the crux of the matter. Basically, so Sneaky Nietzsche was a sort of immersive theatrical underground performance piece centered around live music that I created with a giant group of amazing artists. But I directed it and produced it and also performed in it. And so this is like pre-Sleep No More. I really like to point that out because it often gets compared to that. Yeah. But I do think that's a good frame of reference for it. So it's more kind of like installation based and experiential. And the reason I made it is that earlier in my career, when I had a lot more downtime as an actor, I wanted to fill that with creativity. And so I was like, but for some reason, I was never that actor who was like, I'll write short films and I'll start to make my own movies. Like for me, I was always more interested in original works, and I really have a fascination with the ephemeral nature of live performance and theater of the senses, like all that kind of stuff. So I really was doing things like Sneaky Nietzsche just for fun, but then they were gaining traction. And basically the first 45 minutes of the experience was being inside of this installation. We built a giant underground forest in a 6,000 square foot basement off of Skid Row. Yeah. And then the second 45 minutes of it was a concept driven live music set that I performed in. And it was very sort of like, the idea was almost to create a space for the outskirts of society, for all the misfits and the weirdos. And we did it weekly. The other part of the concept was to create a fictional band that you could only experience by entering this fictional world. So like all of the music was original music composed for the experience, and the band was put together just for the experience. But we started getting asked to play shows a lot, and I had to tell people we weren't actually real. I mean, we were real, but we were. So that was that, and then and it was amazing. And the LA Times came and wrote this profile on it, and then the LA County Museum of Art like asked me to put it up for a night. And there was a moment kind of in my life where I was like, oh, I could do this. Maybe this is what I want to do. But then acting started picking up. I'm very, very, very grateful. Like, I want that to be clear. Yeah. But I think that for a long time, I didn't allow myself to be frustrated with the kind of work I was getting or the kind of processes afforded to me. Because I felt like I just had to be grateful for everything. It was just like, so many actors don't even get to work. Like, you should be grateful, and it's like this blue collar mentality that I was like raised with. And then eventually it was just like, I'm grateful. Of course I'm grateful, but like, I can be grateful and also unsatisfied at the same time, And it was part of the reason I moved to New York, was like, I was really in pursuit of more meaningful work. And of course there's meaningful work in LA as well. But for whatever reason, I was getting a high volume of stuff, but I was just, the quality of it was, and it's astounding to me because often like, I've done the pilot like thing, And like so often I've just been like, this is garbage, this is garbage, this is garbage. And then all of those garbage things get canceled or don't get picked up. And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm like, man, am I just like this is not rocket science. Like, I could have saved you $15 million by just telling you that these were garbage. Like, did you even smell it? It smells like garbage. And then you're surprised it turned out terrible. Like, can I say something? This is like, I'm just gonna do it because you said at the top of this, you're tired. Like, we're all tired of the like formalities, and this is the stuff you're not supposed to say as an actor. But in this moment, I just really want to fight for the truth. Like, these executives, right? Like, it is their job to make like good television. And when you look at the ratio of how many pilots don't get picked up, shows that get canceled after one season, you're like, if you were a doctor and you lost that many patients, you would be fired. If you were a lawyer and you lost that many cases, like, this is where I'm sort of like, is this just a game for you guys? Like, is it just that you need the tax write-off of millions? And like, I don't know where the hiccup is. And of course, there's a lot of amazing stuff being made too. God bless like this wave of like cable and sort of whatever, Amazon, Netflix, all these other platforms that are sort of like, hey, guess what? Quality can win too. Quality can be good business. We're getting off topic of acting process, but it drives me crazy because I'm like, it doesn't take rocket science. You need to let creatives be creatives. Are you a business person? Are you in this for business? Or are you here because of the art? And then separate it and this is the other thing of like actors not being used as assets. It's just like, just give, I don't know, I could just go on for.
Yeah, but what you just said there, you're an asset that people aren't realizing how much of an asset you are, I think. And that's why you're not being fulfilled. Like, this is what's frustrating for me just hearing you talk, is that you have something that maybe is very elusive and is not in everyone. Like, not every actor can do it, but you don't even know the fullness of it because nobody wants to use it. You know,
and that's what, like, of course I'm fucking, it's tough for me because that's how I feel. I feel like I want to give this, and I don't think at the same time, I think the jobs I get because of that, like, right. I get it because they are looking for an artist. So like the last two, I'll say two, let me say this. So I just bitched a lot, right? But I want to say that, like, since I've done it, I've done the money jobs, I had to do it, I got to pay my bills, I don't come from money. But I am getting more selective now, and I have to say, like, I'm so excited for the TV show that I'm about to do. And I'm really proud of some of the movies I've made in the last couple of years, and some of the indie filmmakers who have taken a chance on me. So I don't want it to seem like I'm just like, it's more that, like, I think at a certain point I was like, I could do both. I could do the artsy stuff and fulfill both of these sides, and I wanted to work with auteurs, but it's not the way my path has, like, completely, we don't all get to just, like, be Charlotte Gainsbourg and have our Lars von Trier, or be Laura Dern and have our David Lynch, and be Uma Thurman and have our Tarantino. Some of it's just, I don't know, man. Like, sometimes, Peter, I'm like, you just need to give up on the dream and just be grateful that, like, you get to pay your bills. Like, maybe just let it go. Like, let it go. You're not going to be, like... And then sometimes it's like, I don't know, like, life is maybe doing this because it's like you're actually supposed to be telling your own stories. But the last two big jobs I've gotten, my pilot that got picked up and a movie that I did, Snowpiercer is the show I'm doing, by the way. I'm so excited about it, and I think the creatives are so awesome, and, like, the cast is amazing, so unique, and I'm really interested in what that journey will be. But in that, actually getting that part, and also in With the Animals, they auditioned a lot of women, like hundreds and hundreds. And I'm only saying this because I'm actually, like, an incredibly insecure actor, and I never think I'm good enough. And I, like I said, like, I'm always just like, I just need to do it myself. Like, it's fraught for me. It's not effortless. But getting those two parts and having them really drive it home with me that, like, wow, it took us forever to cast these parts, was the first time I started to think, okay, whatever, like it's me that got, like whatever it is that, all this work I've been doing, all this stuff it is for a reason, because these jobs are the ones I really want to be getting. Like, it doesn't matter that I don't have as much training. It doesn't, there's something, sometimes they're looking for something really unique that I do think I hold. And I'd rather be like one really specific, magnificent color of paint for a painter than like a general freaking beige that they can use in like every single movie, you know? Like, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just like, Sheila, you need to be one of those actors that does like one movie every 3 years. And that's, but you know, you also want to make that money. I think that is all you need as an actor. You need you are, again, sounds so cheesy, but like, you are your fucking instrument. Your body, it's your body, is that character's body, no matter how differently you move it or shape it. Your face, your voice, it's you. And so again, it's like, it's all going back to what I was saying of like, you work on yourself, you are working on your process. You gotta like get out of LA and like go see somebody suffer, or go, I don't know, I was like thinking of some of the emotional like vignettes that float around in my body, and I was thinking of like my grandmother and the feeling of brushing her hair out of her face, or like this really hardened, like hardcore Polish gangster I saw once, like crossing the street in Greenpoint, and the way he furrowed his brows, and like, it's all these little slices for me. That's just how it is. Again, like I think real actors might listen to this and be like, she's not what she's talking about and she's a lunatic. But that's what it is for me. It's like it's alchemy. That's what makes it special. If it was just memorizing lines and being interesting or being beautiful or having fucking Instagram followers, like I wouldn't want to do it. I want to do it because like it's magic, because I don't totally get it. Because I'm like, whoa, I don't know why that was just brilliant. But mostly it's like, mostly it's like you do all the work, you figure out who you are, who is this person, how are you connected to them, and then you get in the room and you try to just let it go and pretend like 200 extra people and cameras and lights and all that stuff's not in there.
This is your life. Like, this is not it's not a job. And you believe that and tell me if I'm wrong, I'm saying this, you believe that you have to live to be a better actor in a way. You have to.
I really believe that.
You're pulling it from everywhere in your life.
Yeah.
And this is a bigger thing to you.
Yeah, it is a bigger, because I don't want, like I said, I don't want to just dedicate my whole life to how well can I fool people, or, you know, how blank can I become? Like, you can lose yourself in the sense of, like, you know, you're working all the time, you are playing different parts, and then there's more to it than just like the art, the creative process. There's being on airplanes all of the time, being around, you know, 200 new people every single project, and having to smile and nod and make small talk. I just saw Lucky, Harry Dean Stanton's last movie, and there's a line in it where he says, "There's one thing worse than awkward silence, small talk." And I just love it so much. It's like, you have to make so much small talk in this business. And all of these things are part of our process. Dealing with the rejection, the constant rejection of auditions is part of our process. Like, and again, it's like, and then at the end of the day, it's like, just smile and nod and be grateful.
Maybe we should talk a little bit, if we can, about this new time we live in for women. Do you feel the change? Do you feel like it's going to get easier? Do you feel like that there's...
I'm mostly just really, really happy that a lot of people who were doing creepy, awful things have been exposed. They should be gone. But more like, for me, I'm one of those people that's like, you know, for most women, none of this is that shocking or surprising. It's funny to me how many people are like, this is crazy. I'm like, really? Like, I very early on stopped even paying attention to all of the names, because I was like, yeah, most men are creeps. Like, that's kind of like how I walk out into the world, is like, most men are creeps. You know, I'm pretty pleased when one is not. Like, that's awesome. But I sort of like go at it being like, no, but the general. So that's my life experience. So it's nice that it's like, whoa, everyone else is sort of admitting this now? Cool. But it has emboldened me, I guess, just in the sense of like recognizing when something's not okay, and also sort of recognizing how much a straight white male perspective has to do with the way a story ends up being told. And more than anything, I'm just like not interested in it that much. I want to play a part that is being told by the way a woman sees another woman. You know, like again, it's like your director is crafting the character with you and crafting the performance with you. So on top of dealing with what the hell does this filmmaker know about acting, you know, I'm kind of also tired of dealing with what the hell does this man know about what it is to be a woman? You know, what does this person know about what, you know, like, because you relinquish so much. You're like, here you go, here's everything I have to offer, please make it good. Again, not all in their hands. I have to bring it too, and I do sometimes, and I can't some other times, but it just, women see the world in a different way, and I want to look at it right now the way they see it. All we ever see is the way the straight white man sees everything, and it's just boring now. It's like, it's just, I don't care. And they even when they're telling progressive stories, like, I don't know, I want to hear the voices of people of color. I want to hear the voices of people who feel marginalized. I've always, anyways, like, besides race and gender and all of that stuff, I've always had a fascination with the outskirts of society, as I said, with Sneaky Nietzsche, like the misfits. I've always felt like I don't belong in like the formulaic way that things work. So, not to say like women are misfits and outlaws, or, you know, but society has been structured to benefit a certain group of people, and that hasn't been us. And so it's really hard. It's hard to like really take the change, internalize it. The way I'm doing it right now is just seeking out more, like saying no more. I'm more inclined to say yes to something if there is a woman at the helm. What I sort of saw in Robin Williams was that it almost felt like the whole process was the rehearsal process, because he still was trying new things even throughout the run of the show. And so that idea of it can always get better, it can always get more specific or deeper, or, you know, don't stop questioning it, don't just rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
And also that I felt he didn't seem ashamed of his darkness in a way. Like, I just think vulnerability is so interesting. You know, you can be such a good actor and put on a good show, but like, don't you think the thing that draws you into performances the most is seeing vulnerability? Like, and it's hard to do that when you're just scared and you want to hit your mark right, and you don't want to anger anyone, or don't get fired, or don't, you know? Like, when you make actors just feel like they're so replaceable, or they get an audition right before, you know, casting is the very last thing to often happen. Does anybody give a shit that might cut into someone's preparation time? No. The mentality is, you're getting paid enough, show up, you're a pro, show up. Yeah, of course I can show up and turn out something solid. I've been doing it long enough, but don't you want more than that? Like, don't you want more than the thing I brought into the audition when I had one day with this material? No? You're happy with that? Okay. I mean, literally, it's like the audition is the process. That's it. It's like you did it good enough. It's like, I got this scene yesterday. I could do what about how much better I could do?
It's not even like a demand that you need as an actor. It's like, this will make the thing better.
Yeah.
This will make it better. Why don't you know yet? After 100 years of making movies, 120 years of making movies, why don't we know yet that this actually makes the movie better? Like that? Nope, gotta have the light right, gotta have the thing.
I don't know. When I say it, I'm made to feel, or I feel like I'm making it about me. And that's not what I'm trying to do. But yeah, I give a shit about performance a lot. Like, that's my department, and like, you know, yeah, I happen to think that you could put two, like But again, like I said, like you could have a great script, it can look really fancy and nice, but if the acting sucks, if it's not rooted in something real, or it's just, I don't know what we're doing then.
Sheila Vand, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you so much.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project.